Hello, my name is Kasper Jelsbæk Knudsen. I'm a chief consultant with Living Institute. I have a PhD in anthropology and a background in neuroscience. I'm here to explain to you the concept of unconscious bias. But before I do so, let me give you an example from my own life. So one afternoon, I'm sitting together with my supervisor. We are arranging name tags for an important client event the following day. This is late in the afternoon, and it has been somewhat a stressful day, a busy day at least. I'm somewhat tired and a bit stressed. My supervisor goes through the name list, and I check that we have all the name tags. At one point, my supervisor asked me to find a CEO of a Danish company. I go through the name tags, but I can't find this person. I ask my supervisor to please repeat the name of the company. My supervisor does. Yet still, I can't see this person. Now, all of a sudden, I become nervous. My heart starts to race. Have I forgotten to print out this very important client? I tell my supervisor that maybe I've forgotten. What do we do? I ask my supervisor. My supervisor looks at me and says, "Are you sure? You know, her name is Maria." Oops. All of a sudden, I realize what I've done. In hearing the name CEO, the word CEO, I have unconsciously and unintentionally looked for a man's name, not a woman's name. And yet there it was, the name tag right in front of me, with the company name, the title, CEO, but it was a woman's name. I couldn't see it. What was more, sitting next to my supervisor, who is the CEO of our company and a woman, I had made a double mistake. Ouch. No good. So why am I telling you this story right now? Well, the point is actually two things. First of all, it illustrates what unconscious bias is. It's a kind of blindness, an inability to see factual information that's right before our eyes, but we can't see it because our brain expects to see something else. Second point, unconscious bias, if left unchecked, can lead to very negative consequences for our businesses because of the poor decisions we make. So, what do I mean by negative consequences of unconscious bias? Well, let me give you an example. Imagine this. Say I'm the responsible person in our company for hiring new people, bringing in new managers. I'm in the recruitment section. I tell myself and everyone around us that I'm fair, I'm objective, and basically I only look for competences. Only problem? I'm probably not as fair as I think I am. In fact, what I don't realize is that my brain is constantly telling me who I should look for, what I should expect to see, and ultimately who will probably be a good fit for this position. I'm not aware of this. And what is worse, actually, I might be looking for someone just like me. I might be hiring myself, identifying that in other people. So why is this a problem? It's a problem because, according to one report, by the year 2030, more than 60% of STEM-educated young people will come from non-OECD countries, such as India and China predominantly. In fact, more than 70% of young people with tertiary education all over the world will come from non-OECD and G20 countries by the year 2030. This means that if I'm basically looking for myself in other people, I will probably miss out on a very large pool of talent. Another report found that if you have diversity in a team, that team will produce better business decisions, well, compared to all male, homogenous teams. In fact, the report found that up to 87% of the time, diversified teams can and will make better business decisions. Now, researchers have found more than 150 biases. Should you remember all of them? No. There's only really one bias you need to know about. If you are like me, you've probably said to yourself a couple of times, I'm fair, I'm objective. Other people have unconscious bias, I don't. That's the one bias you need to be aware of. We call it the bias, or sometimes the Überbias. It's not even knowing that you have unconscious bias. So to understand why we have unconscious bias, let's take a closer look at what is actually going on inside the brain. Every second, our unconscious brain processes more than 11 million bits of information. Of those 11 million, we are only aware of about 40 or so. This means that our unconscious brain is responsible for basically giving us all the information we need to act right in our everyday life, to stay alive, basically. But it also means that our brain cannot scrutinize every little bit of information very carefully. So it has to do so by recognizing patterns. It has to take in information, catalog it, because it has seen it before, it knows what it is. And then if it does, it passes it on. This means that what the brain is actually doing, because there's so much information to be processed in so little time, our brain does what researchers at the University of Sussex have called the best guess. Our brain is a guessing brain. Let me show you an example of what it means to have a guessing brain. Take a look at this image. What's the first thing you see? What if I were to tell you that this is actually an image of a cow? Is that what you saw? If you saw something else, perhaps something completely different, this was your brain guessing. Your brain tells you what you can expect to see, and this is actually visually what you see. Our brain is guessing, it's looking for familiar information, and then it passes that on to your conscious mind, and this is what you will be seeing. Now imagine we turn off the image of the cow and we turn it back on. Immediately you should be able to see the cow. In fact, by now, for most people, it's pretty difficult not to see the cow. So what happens? Well, if you didn't see the cow, your brain has been rewired. You now see something that's factually correct, and your brain has a better chance of guessing accurately. Let's go back to the small steps you can actually take today to become more aware of your unconscious bias. Next time you are presented with new information, try to think about the cow. Articulate what you are seeing, and then ask other people what they're seeing. If you are not seeing the same thing, well, then try to put yourself in their shoes, see things from their perspective. Also, if you are in situations where you need to make a decision based on new information, reflect on your emotional state. If you are like I was on the day with the name tag, tired, a bit stressed, maybe even hungry, you can be pretty sure that your unconscious bias is trying to make the decision for you. Finally, if you really want to explore these unconscious bias more and get the tools to deal with them, well, consider doing a deep dive with unconscious bias training. With small steps such as these, you will gradually train your brain to become more aware of unconscious bias. But when do you know that you have actually become more aware? Well, let's say the next time you're hiring in new people to your company, you're no longer looking to hire just, well, yourself or people very similar to you. Now you expect to find people who are very different from you. And without that selection of talents, well, the pool is simply just not good enough for you anymore. This is when you know that you are gaining the benefits from unconscious bias training. In this video, I have explained the concept of unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is basically our inability to see factual information in the situations when we need to be able to see that to make good decisions.